So, like, he was in ice for 70 years or whatever, so he doesn't understand anything nowadays. So, like, there's a big cultural disconnect between a lot of these people, and that's really interesting. So, the way that relationships develop between these people is very interesting. Um, for instance, the way that the sort of, I really want to say, like, brotherly rivalry comes up between um, Iron Man and Captain America. I love that. That was really cool. Um, because they're also culturally different and like personality wise very different, and their fighting styles are very different, and that's what makes it interesting and what makes it really special. You don't see a lot of movies like that. I haven't seen any movies like that. Which doesn't really say that much, but like that are in that have that kind of relationship between characters. Um, and each character was really interesting. I was emotionally invested in all of them. Even Iron Man, who I really was not interested. The reason why I wasn't interested in the Avengers before Thor was because Iron Man came out first, and I didn't like the trailers for Iron Man because he looked like he looked like Bruce Wayne with Batman's gadgets. If that makes sense, he didn't have like the hero-ish like qualities of Batman. He was just the obnoxious playboy with pretty gadgets. Um, but he was played by Robert Downey Jr., who was probably the most enjoyable, lovable jackass that you can get. Like, I mean, he's very charismatic, you know. And also, he really wasn't that big a jerk. He really wasn't. And in this movie, he learns a lesson. And he becomes all hero-y. You know, he has his emotional breakthrough, which sounds really cheesy, but quite frankly, in the context of the story, it wasn't. It was really cool. Um, and he was probably the person I disconnected to the most, and like I said, I had a great connection with him. I had a great connection with all of these characters, and that's good. Even a lot of the side characters, who I know have been set up in previous movies, but in this movie did not have that much setup. Like the guy who dies in this movie. I didn't know it. I didn't know that much about him until right before he died. And then when he died, I was like, but he was so cool for an old man in a suit who worked for the government. They're never cool. They're always like really obnoxious and stuffy. But he was awesome, and he so like all the characters were great. None of them were obnoxious, and I was a little dubious of Scarlett Johansson in this movie. Not as a diss of Scarlett Johansson, but sort of for two reasons. One, Scarlett Johansson doesn't really, to my knowledge, I know she was in Iron Man 2, but to my knowledge, she doesn't do movies like this. She does closer to real life type movies, like I want to say like North and Lost in Translation and that sort of thing. So the idea of her in a comic book movie was a little alien to me. But then also the fact that she was the female in a comic book movie. And I'll tell you why that was a stupid concern on my part in a minute. But the reason why I was concerned is because, in general, the women are not good actors. The characters are not that good. I mean, usually they're put in there for 4 reasons. 1, 2, 3, 4. Really. They are just there for eye candy, and they act that way. For instance, the Silk Spectre in Watchmen. I like the older Silk Spectre because she was a good actress, but the younger one was such a bad actress. And the only reason she was in that movie was because she looks good naked. That's it. Jessica Alba in Sin City. There wasn't really anything like that in the V for Vendetta movie because Natalie Portman was great, and you don't see her naked. But like, I'm trying to think. Oh, Halle Berry and January Jones in the X-Men series. Usually, if there's a main female protagonist who's a bad actress with a hot body, and I could not care less because her character is so bland. And Black Widow's character is really good and really interesting. And this is why I should have known better, is because Joss Whedon writes really good female characters, especially given that he's a man. Which is not to say that all men write bad female characters. But for instance, Chris Nolan is a great director, makes good movies, no strong female characters. Like, if they're not bad, they're just not interesting. And it's not intentional, I'm sure. But it just doesn't happen because there are virtually no female directors in Hollywood. The only thing that ever came to my mind is Drew Barrymore. And not that she's a bad director or anything like that, but she's Drew Barrymore. Like, she's not Christopher Nolan. You know what I mean? Like, there's no one like that who's a female. All the female directors that I know of do documentaries. So, which is why it took so long for a female director to get nominated for an Oscar. It's because they do documentaries and that sort of thing. They do sort of like TV stuff, I guess, but made for TV movies. But even romantic comedies, usually done by men. But Joss Whedon writes female characters very well. The weakest female characters I know of, in that they're not the most badass, I guess, are Kaylee from Firefly and Tara from Buffy. And I'm not going to say Willow because although she was sort of geeky and nerdy, she became an ultimate badass who almost undid the entire world. And she was awesome. And she had lesbian sex a lot, which was cool. But, I mean, for TV audience. But Tara was a very interesting character, and a big part of her character was that she was not as badass as everyone else. Well, I guess really the only bad female character he's ever written is Dawn from Buffy, the little sister. And most of it was not his writing or his directing. It's just that Miss Syl Transenberg, much to my dismay, grew up to be a really bad, awful, shrill, almost like a really bratty actress in terms of her acting technique. It was really bad. I mostly blame the actress for that because after Harriet the Spy, I haven't liked anything she's done ever. So I blame her. And Kaylee, Tara, is a good actress, or a good character. But I guess the only thing about her is that she's not a great character. But I love Tara, and she was a very good, solid character. And you needed her to be not as out there as all the other female characters because there were a lot of them. Because he writes really good female characters. Kaylee was a great female character, but the reason why I say she's probably one of the weaker ones is because, not weak though, because she wasn't a weak character at all. Because she was very girly. I'm not going to say she wasn't competent, but she didn't know how to fight. She wasn't going to fight or kill anyone. Nothing like that. And she was very daydreamy. But she could also be very sharp. She was very interesting. She was very funny. She was very much like a real girl. And not annoying or obnoxious or anything like that. She was really good and a very strong character. And she was one of his weakest characters, so that should tell you about his other characters. And they're all so diverse and interesting. So I really should have known better from Black Widow's character because she's really good and really interesting. And when Loki is trying to intimidate her, and he's like, your letter is drenched in blood. You're a killer, and you're just feeling sorry for yourself, but you can't hide from the things you've done. And she's like crying and like, you're such a meanie or whatever. I'm just like, here it comes. And then she's just like, he flips, and she turns around and she's like, gotcha. I'm like, cool. But that's not to say that she's made of stone or anything like that. Because you do see her get, not badly, but you do see her get shaken. Not like in a bad way emotional, but you see her get shaken. Like she is a person. She's not just like some ice queen. But she's also not good. She's just as competent as anyone else. She can fight for herself. She can ask for help when she needs to as well. There is part in the fight when Captain America shields her, but it's not like any of the other men in the series are like, you're a woman, I must protect you. It's not like that at all. Like, Captain America would have done that for anyone else who just happened to be right there, It was nothing about her being a woman. So she was a very strong character in that regard. Also, you never see her naked. You never see her making. Maybe this happened in Iron Man too, but you never see her naked. You see her in skin tight jumpsuits, but you never see her naked, and you never see her having sex with someone. She's not there for eye candy. I mean, she's hot. I'm not gonna say she's not hot, but that's not her purpose. It's a bonus, but that's not her purpose. She's there to be a really good, strong character and a strong fighter in the group. So she has her own thing to bring besides, her boobs. So I was very pleased with that because I was sort of dreading her, and she did really well. So I mean, really, all the characters were really top notch. And the only thing I didn't like in terms of maybe plot was Loki's motivation, because the way that he explained it and the way it unraveled, and the fact that it's a total cliche of just, oh, I'm the redheaded stepson who's never loved enough, and I've always had to live in your shadow, so now I'm gonna destroy everything you love, and have power and give vengeance upon you and whatever. It really was stupid, but because it wasn't, but it was just really cliche and like how I said, Iron Man, sort of steps up to the plate and becomes a hero and takes one for the team or whatever. Like that sounds really cheesy, but the way they built it, it wasn't. It worked really well in the story. His motivation didn't work well in the story, but and that was the only time that things really seemed expositional. Once that was over, I liked Loki. Not the least bit because he was played by Sark, but I liked the character. I thought he was a really good villain to have because he didn't really remind me of any other kind of villain, and he wasn't just mahaha take over the world evil scientist. Science. So I liked his character. Something I really liked about, and what I mean about like character development, I liked that they Captain America was in the military, of course, and he worked for the U.S. government, so he's very stick to the rules. He's very martial in that sense. He's kind of a hard ass on everyone else. But before you really see him like that, you see this really cute moment of because he's been in a block of ice for 70 years. Not cute, but like you see this really good moment of because he's been in a block for 70 years, he doesn't understand a lot of what people say because we sort of have all this new stuff that we talk about. We have a lot of like new references that we talk about, and this guy in the army comes up and he's like, well, I don't want these guys to become his flying monkeys. And Thor is like, I don't understand what that means because he's, the god of lightning from a different dimension. And Captain America's like, I do! I know what that means! I understand that! And he's so excited about it. And it's really, like, it's a really good look at his personality so you know that he's not, when he's pushing other people around, he's still a human underneath, He's just like any other guy that you would be friends with.